Hi everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to her STEM Stories episode number 72. If you don't know yet, we're hosting our second annual Wonder Women in STEM online conference. It's going to be all online and you can join from anywhere around the world. Use the link in the episode notes to sign up now and use the discount code HerSTEMStory19 to get 25% off on your registration. There are only limited seats because it's online, so make sure you grab your spot before it's gone. And this conference is going to set you up for 2020 in the best way possible because we're going to bring you discussions from industry experts, keynote speakers that are going to blow your mind, and we're going to help you realize your superpower in STEM and how you can forge a unique path in your STEM career and in your life in general. So please make sure you sign up. We can't wait to see you there. We want to bring value to our community because we love you all so much. Thank you so much in advance for signing up. And today we're talking to Sowmya, who is a fellow Indian, and she grew up in a very interesting part of India where we have tribal unrest. So her story is all about what she's doing today at UC Davis in California and how she kind of got to it and how her childhood shaped her life in the science field and also her advocacy for women and education. So keep listening.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
So I grew up in India and I've been living in the US for only last 7 years. So it's always a pleasure to interview someone from India. Today we're talking to Sowmya Purushothaman, a physicist and women in STEM advocate based in California. Sowmya's journey has been full of challenges, but she has championed all of them. To graduate with a Ph.D. from Imperial College London and a postdoc from Cambridge University. Let's talk to Sowmya to learn more about her interesting STEM story. Hi Sowmya, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Prasha. Thank you for the introduction. Looking forward to this conversation.
So to get things started, tell us a little bit about what kind of advocacy work you're involved in as of now.
Right. So there are causes that I try to get involved in as and when I get time. One is women in STEM and trying to make education accessible to a wider community, both in the US as well as in India. We had this non-profit organization called the STEM Foundation, but we kind of now it's a registered NPO, and we are really excited to do more work.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So what's your full-time job?
I am currently a research fellow at UC Merced, and I'll be moving to UC Merced starting next month.
Okay.
So I'm currently a scientist in effect.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your research work.
I am a physicist and I work in the area of biophysics, which is an interdisciplinary field where we use the knowledge of physics, engineering, mathematics, and biochemistry to understand problems in biology. I have been working in the area of membrane biophysics, where I try to understand how membranes in the cells function. And there are two key projects that I'm currently working on. One is to understand the origins of life and the role of membrane in developing the first cell, which we would call lifelike. And what we try to do is we try to see, if you really look at cells, they are all bounded by a membrane. And if you go further deeper, all the organelles or the smaller components of the cells are also bound by membrane. So there is something really interesting about membrane, that it is really vital for the cells to function, which we also know that they kind of compartmentalize and they create these natural boundaries, and they're almost like gatekeepers and who regulate things that go in and out of the cell. So what we want to do is we want to to build an artificial cell, we want to find out first what are the minimum amount of ingredients that would be required to build an artificial cell. And what we think is membranes by far are one of the most crucial elements. And what we want to see is if we can build these artificial membranes, and then to call it lifelike, we would need some sort of like proteins and other biochemicals, chemical agents, as well as replication machinery like DNA and RNA. So to develop an artificial cell, one of the challenges is try to encapsulate them inside the membrane. So we're kind of working on that area. And an offshoot of that project it's a fairly new field, I would say. It's called active matter. And the best way to explain this field is using flocks of birds, and that's the most commonly cited example. If you really look at flocks of birds or even like schools of fish, what you would see is that each bird or each fish, in case of schools of fish, they are independent entities. They are lifelike. They do their own thing. They are very independent. But yet, together, this whole large swarms of birds and fishes, they can form interesting formations. And if you really type swarms of birds or schools of fish, you can see lots of really interesting shapes that Google spits out. So that is effectively what is called active matter. So now you can use that principle to cells. What you notice is, although they are all membrane bound, but a lot of smaller molecules, they are independent. Like all these little organelles are independent. They drive energy from ATP independently, and they go about doing their own thing or specific tasks that they are assigned to do. But if you look at cells, that kind of, it acts as one massive entity. So that's called active matter. And we are trying to build these concepts in artificial cells. We want to put external energy driving agent and all of these things artificially and see if we can come up with something which is more lifelike.
So you're literally creating life from nothing.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That's super cool. So what will be the kind of application of this technology? I'm sure you could create like organs or, and stuff like that.
I mean, if you look at the grand challenges, I think origins of life is still one of the biggest grand challenges that we still don't understand. The applications of this can be very many. And like you just pointed out, you can build artificial cells, and artificial organs and tissues are almost there. But I think the fundamental understanding has got more profound applications in terms of if we understand how these individual molecules function so impeccably, we can then use those technologies to, for example, in drug delivery, where, you can build these artificial cells and you will say, well, go find where injury is, or go find where you have to work on these cells, and it'll navigate itself on its own, because they are active and they will go to the target site without damaging anything else. So this would be like most non-invasive way of curing things. And the other things that you had just mentioned was, of course, building artificial cells just explodes the, expands the opportunities to, also patch things that are not fine in our body with the artificially developed organs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure philosophical, I guess, as you get closer to finding the solution to some of these grand challenges. Like, why are we here? How did we get here? And, that will be another very interesting conversation.
If you really look at, origins of life, different fields, they have different ways of addressing this. So if you look at or if you talk to an astrobiologist, for example, they would have a very different take on origins of life. They would say compartmentalization. How do you know compartmentalization was so important? Maybe it was not important. Maybe things just came together and they formed life like in compartments, or by compartment, what I meant was membranes was just like an evolutionary process rather than being the fundamental process. So if you really talk to a geophysicist, they would have a completely different understanding of what it is. So depending upon which specialist you talk about, they will be able to give you their own interpretation, as well as what they think would be the best application of understanding the basic like you said, the philosophical problem of where we all came from.
Yeah, and that completely explains why it's called a doctorate in philosophy, because you can have your own interpretation of some of these, problems. So
it does become philosophy after a point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very interested in learning about your upbringing in India. You mentioned something in your form about civil unrest. So I want to know, where do you come from in India, and what it was like growing up there?
Sure. So my dad is a retired engineer, and he himself kind of is a self-made man in a way. And he was a mechanical engineer, and he really wanted to get his hands dirty. So he just went and worked for mines. And these mining areas are in these, I would say, Middle Eastern part of the country called Chattisgarh, where
I'm originally from MP, so I know.
Oh, right. Okay. So It used to be MP and now it is Chattisgarh. Yeah. So that area was pretty, I would say, violent in many ways. When I was growing up, there are many reasons. One is it's one of the really less developed, like really remote and rural areas, and most of the mining areas in the country are pretty much like that. But the civil unrest is coming because I think the locals, they're not happy with this whole mining activity that the government has planned out, and hence they kind of are taking it really seriously, and now they are going all guns blazing. So that's the premise where I grew up. So every day you step out, you will have the army. It's called CSRF in India. They will be there, and then you have the locals that are trying to protest, and you will have gunfire and all sorts of things. Yeah.
So is it near Chambal?
Chambal is more further, I would say, towards the central India. This is south, like Middle East of India, but south of the state.
Yes, and I think isn't it a lot of tribal violence too? Like just the tribes don't get along with the government, and just like that unrest has been there for a long time. I guess I'm not sure how much better it has gotten now, but it's definitely something that we heard growing up as well. But I did not know that mining was the reason for it.
So there are many reasons. Like it started off in the 70s, and you're absolutely right. It's because of the friction between the local tribes and what the government has planned to do. So that area is pretty mineral rich, and therefore you have the tussle between the government and the tribes. And it's one of the most green and lush areas. It was really beautiful. So it started off in the 70s, and it was more like, in a way, you can call it like a Robin Hood style of approach.
It's like the Wild West.
Pretty much. India. Wild East, rather. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what it was, and that's where the whole unrest is coming in, and it is really getting worse and worse, and to the extent that we are bringing in national CSRF forces, which is pretty intense. So it used to be much better when I was growing up. At least you could step out after 6 o'clock, and it was much safer that way. But now, I mean, even the mines kind of shut off, and it's under strict vigilance because anything could happen at any time.
Interesting. So what kind of effect, I mean, I know you just said that, it's gotten worse as you grew up, and it was much better as a child, but what kind of effect did that have on your personality per se, or just your choices in life?
Right. One thing that I'm really aware of is the fact that, whatever I have done, I feel that I'm extremely lucky, and I really value the opportunities that have been given to me, or I have been able to seek out, simply because I have seen that side of the world where, it's a very different world. So it's not about they don't have any amenities, but it's just that they don't have the exposure to understand that there is life beyond the constant struggle that they've been going through, and because of which their families are forever below the poverty line, and they're barely able to making the ends meet and whatnot. So I really value that. I value that you are in a position where you're connected to the world. That also it's a big deal. That you're able to seek out opportunities if you want to, and it's not just professional, it's also about learning new things. For example, in the places that I grew up, you couldn't really learn anything that is cultural or you would brand as cultural. You can't read books because there are no book supplies. You can't learn dancing. You can't do music, and those kind. It was really basic and super challenging. So I have grown to value the opportunities that I get when I'm here, for example.
Yeah, and people don't realize how different different parts of India can be, and just these basic things. Like I always tell people, hot showers. I said, are you kidding me? I said, that is like, I'm so grateful for it every single day that you have no idea.
Yeah, I know, right?
Limited water growing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's little things, but as you said, not having enough books, not having exposure to, all these extracurricular activities per se, can really change you as a person. I guess, when you finally get access to it, and everything is more like, as you use the right word, seeking opportunity, no matter what it is, if it's personal development or professional development. And coming in the Western world, which is way more open and accessible to a lot of stuff. But did that growing up, or did that atmosphere affect you, or just the fact that you're a woman in STEM now? Does that affect your advocacy work, or just the way you conduct yourself in this male-dominated scenario?
Right. So I think what my upbringing it was less to do with women in STEM, because we were struggling with the fundamentals of trying to be educated in the first place, and gender bias would come after that in a way, because it's a long way to go. Gender bias is something, it's a worldwide problem, but not having fundamental education is trying to at least motivate people to understand that education is probably the only way for them to get out of that situation and be a better person in a way. So for what motivated me, or what shaped, it's mostly about trying to make education accessible is what I really work towards, and that's what is shaped by largely shaped by my upbringing. But the women in STEM situation, it's really to do with my personal journey and my personal experience. Way into my academic career, I had finished my PhD, and then I was doing a postdoc, and certain experiences during my postdoc was really in a way eye-opening for me, that actually, there is some sort of a preference in the society as to how they want to interact with women and how they want to interact with men. And it's got nothing to do with your lack of knowledge or education, because I have always been surrounded with academics ever since you start your graduation and whatnot. And that struck a chord with me. I mean, I'm sure there would have been lots of biases when I was growing up as well. And it was more along the lines of, I never thought once you would be educated, you would still be facing those biases.
Yes.
Yeah. So culturally, we all know that, there are certain things that are very entrenched, and, we understand that, oh, okay, fine, this is a traditional thing, which is a very patriarchal society, and we kind of try to question it. And that I have done all my life, but I never understood. And for me, that was really surprising that even in the West, when you have had your PhD and, all the accolades that you can possibly think of, and yet there is a bias in the way communication happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. I think it's, like we are sold the idea, especially in India, at least in the, cities or in a more urban setting, I would say. The idea is sold like, okay, you're going to, all you need to do is, either move abroad or, get a degree or start your business, whatever that looks like for you. And then, especially coming to West, I guess we also earned some more time for reflection, which we don't have in India because India is just survival. And you just don't have time to sit and think about these biases or even, talk about them because, as you said, very basic issues like education, water, food, those are, still, there. So when you come here, you kind of sit down and you reflect and you go like, wait a minute, I thought the West was supposed to be, better than this. And you still have to fight your fight in a different setup. But it's really, really surprising. I feel the same way too. I said, we never had this. I mean, we were never like, especially, I think I grew up in Delhi, but still like, I don't think someone ever said you're a girl, that's why you will not be able to become an engineer. It was something like PhDs in India are usually, especially again, I'm just talking about big cities. I don't want to generalize the whole country because it's so diverse, but especially in the cities, PhD is like, women do PhDs, women, it's a women field. It's more flexible, adaptable. It's easier to raise a family when you're working for a college or professor. I have aunts who are all PhDs. I think I know like 4 women from my mom's generation who have a PhD degree.
Oh no! Wow. So you.
Yeah, so I feel like again, growing up in different setups. Again, can't generalize. Such a huge country, but that's super interesting. So tell us, how can young women in science stay motivated? Because you talk about the bias, you talk about things that are inaccessible education in developing world, but also the subtle biases in the Western world. So if a young woman is listening to this, what do they do to stay motivated?
I think we have to be a little careful. These are not subtle differences. They are pretty intense. And because of which there is a dialogue, which is really, really, I would say, a positive welcome. But what we need to think is, it's not just in science. It percolates everywhere. You have it's just a mindset that we've been trained to do it, and it is both ways. It's not just the other half of the society which is being really unfair and unreasonable. It is in a way, as a woman, we also kind of take things as they come rather than questioning it. And we're kind of okay with it. But if you really think about it, it's actually is not okay, So we are at that stage where we're trying to introspect and we're trying to question ourselves as well, and which is a really good phase to be in. Having said that, what we can do as a scientist and how to keep ourselves motivated is, I mean, when it comes to science, it's just believing in science. It's believing in what you think is an exciting field of work and which you really want to invest in. So science really comes with the question of how passionate you feel about it and how determined you are in. And that is for any field that you want to progress and excel and contribute towards. But in terms of the other kind of challenges, it is not just about you going to work and doing your best and giving your 100%. It's not about that. It is about how do you portray, how do you present your work to a larger audience in a way that it is respected and it is given equal attention, which sometimes is not the case, as it would be, for example, a male expert is going to present the work. I think that is where I feel is the challenge lies. And these are all more administrative, communicative, those are the places where I feel, as of now, that's where I feel that there is a bias. I really don't have the experience yet to see how the grant, for example, because those are even bigger issues, like how grant is being issue to people and how what shapes that. It's a much more senior role. So I cannot really speak for those roles, but as of now, I feel that and that is how I keep myself motivated is to believe that, I am at par with people with my colleague, and I believe in my science. And what I really want to learn is to better communicate to this audience. And how you do that is constantly training yourself, saying, if there is something that you disagree with, have the voice to say, I don't agree, and be very objective about it, why you don't agree, and be succinct about it. Because most of the times what happens is, as let's say, especially as a STEM and coming from physics, I'm mostly surrounded by a lot of men, and pretty much there has been situations where there is no woman at all. And it's very easy at that point that you will have 4 scientists who would be talking endlessly about lots of different problems and how they want to collaborate, and all of that comes with being a scientist. And if I'm a part of that conversation, it's very easy to feel that you're in a way left out. It's not a conscious thing. Nobody's doing anything consciously, but it's a very subtle thing. And what I want to do is to see, okay, how do I know that my science is good, for example, and how do I try to navigate in that arena? So that is what for me would keep one motivated.
Yes, that's awesome. And, so that kind of leads us right into your outreach work and how our listeners can kind of support you and learn more from you. So tell us a little bit about that.
I can go on about a lot of, situations when you feel the bias and what you can do about it, and all the rest of it. But I think I would definitely like to take this opportunity to talk about my outreach work. And we're really excited, like I said, that we've just launched this nonprofit organization called STEM's collaboration. And what we want to do as a part of this initiative is, like I said, one of the problems in India is education is not accessible to everyone. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to come up with ideas to make education a little bit more fun, motivate students who are not from, let's say, the elite schools in India, who's going to the run-of-the-mill government schools, which are barely run, to be honest. So that is one aspect that we are working on. And as a part of that, we are organizing a lot of talks and interviews and screenings of amazing movies and all that. So we're in the process of raising funds to kind of get all of these things organized and put in place. So I would really value if people can take some time and donate whatever they can donate to this cause.
Yes, definitely. And we'll share the links in the episode notes for everyone to donate to Sowmya's wonderful work that she's actually doing all the way back home. And it's a great feeling to kind of give back to where we come from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. So before we let you go, tell us your favorite book.
My favorite book. I actually was thinking about it the moment you gave me the pointers. And I read quite a bit. My best read ever has been of Mice and Men. It's by John Steinbeck. It made me cry. So
Oh, that's awesome. So we'll have to share that link as well so we can get started on that book, because
it's a very small book. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice, very nice. So again, thank you so much, Sowmya, for taking the time and sharing your wonderful story. I had so much fun learning more about your research and, where you come from and how, how your upbringing kind of shaped who you are today. And you should be really, really proud, because we are definitely very proud of you.
Thank you so much, Presha. It was a pleasure talking to you and sharing my thoughts as well.
And that was Sowmya with her amazing STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Sowmya and her amazing work. Don't forget to sign up for our second annual Wonder Women in STEM online conference and use the coupon code HerSTEMStory19. That's all capital HerSTEMStory19 to get 25% discount. The link is in the episode notes as well. Please join us next week as we announce our sponsors, our keynote speakers, and our agenda. Yes, so next week we're going to release our agenda for the Wonder Women in STEM online conference, and you really need to tune in to this episode because it's going to be fabulous. See you next week. Bye.